Peace be upon you. Welcome to the What Does Science Say channel. You've probably heard all sorts of conflicting stories about what happens when you don't have sex for a long time. Is it totally harmless? Or are there some real, measurable effects on your body and mind? Well, in this explainer, we're going to cut right through the noise and look at what the science actually says. So here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll look at why this is such a contradictory question to begin with. Then, we'll dive into the specific physical effects on men and then on women. After that, we'll get into how it can impact your mood, look at some really surprising data on long-term health, and finally, we'll pull it all together to figure out the bottom line. All right, so what's at the very heart of this whole debate? Well, it turns out you have two very different schools of thought. On one hand, you've got a pretty straightforward medical opinion, like this one from Dr. Adebayo. The idea is, if you choose not to have sex, then from a purely medical perspective, there aren't any negative side effects. Simple as that. It sounds nice and clean, right? But is it really that simple? Because when you start to look at a wider range of research, a much more complicated picture starts to form. Because on the other side of the coin, you have all these studies suggesting links between how often you have sex and, well, all of this. We're talking about everything from your prostate health and your immune system to how you handle stress, and even, as we're about to see, your long-term risk of mortality. So yeah, it's definitely not a simple yes or no answer. Okay, so let's start digging into the details, and we'll begin with the potential physical effects on men. You've definitely heard that old saying, use it or lose it. But when we're talking about sexual function in men, is there any real science behind it? Well, it's not about things shrinking or disappearing. It's really all about function. So this is what use it or lose it actually means in a biological sense. You see, regular erections are what keep blood flowing healthily to that tissue. Without that regular activity, the tissues can lose a bit of their flexibility over time, and that might lead to weaker or slower erections down the line. It's a functional thing, not a structural one. And this next one, this is probably one of the biggest points you'll see in the research. A whole bunch of studies have found this link between regular ejaculation and a lower risk of prostate cancer. The leading theory is that it basically helps to flush the system out, clearing away potentially harmful stuff that might otherwise build up. Okay, let's switch gears now and focus on women. There are just as many questions here and a few really persistent myths that we just need to bust right off the bat. Let's just tackle the biggest myth of all head on. This idea that if you don't have sex for a long time, the vagina will somehow close up. This is completely 100% false. It's just not how the body works. While some other changes can happen, that is definitely not one of them. Here's another perfect example of myth versus reality. No, the hymen does not regrow. What can happen, though, is that the vaginal tissues, kind of like we saw in men, can lose some of their elasticity. And this effect can be even more noticeable around menopause, when lower estrogen levels can also lead to dryness, and that might cause some discomfort when you do become sexually active again. And the potential impacts don't stop there. Think about it. Sex is actually a pretty good workout for the pelvic floor muscles, which are super important for supporting your bladder. So without that regular exercise, those muscles can get a little weaker. Plus, just like with any other skill, your body can get a little out of practice, so it might take a bit longer to become aroused after a long break. So, we've talked a lot about the body, but sex is so much more than just a physical act, right? It has a huge effect on our brain chemistry and, by extension, our mood. You can think of it like this. During sex and intimacy, your brain mixes up this amazing feel-good cocktail. You get a rush of oxytocin. That's the cuddle hormone that makes us feel bonded.
You get endorphins, which are the body's own natural pain and stress relievers. And you get dopamine, that chemical that's all about pleasure and reward. It is a really powerful mix.
So, what happens if your brain isn't getting that cocktail on a regular basis? Well, for some people, it can mean feeling more stressed out or irritable. Some might experience what's called skin hunger, which is a very real craving for physical touch. It can even lead to lower self-confidence or feeling anxious about intimacy in the future. And now we get to what is, for me, the most surprising and maybe the most important data we're going to talk about today. We're talking about the link between sexual frequency and our long-term health, and even how long we might live. A really big study looked at data from over 15,000 American adults. The researchers asked them about their sexual activity and then just followed them for more than 10 years to see if there was any link to their risk of dying. And honestly, the results were staggering. Just get a load of this. The people who reported having sex at least once a week had a 49% lower risk of dying from any cause compared to those who had sex less than once a year. 49%. That is a massive difference when you're talking about all-cause mortality. And when they looked at specific causes, the link was even stronger. That same group, the ones having sex at least weekly, had a 69% lower risk of dying from cancer. Now, of course, this is a correlation, not causation. But wow, that's a powerful correlation. Then, a follow-up study dug into the data just for women, and the finding was striking. Women who had sex less than once a week actually had a 70% higher risk of dying during the study than women who had sex more often. It really suggests that this protective association might be especially strong for women. Okay, so we started this whole conversation with two conflicting ideas, didn't we? That abstinence has zero medical effects and that it's connected to all these different health outcomes. So let's pull it all together and see where we land. I think this table really sums it up perfectly. So, is abstinence actively dangerous? Is your body going to break down? No. But is the claim that it has no medical effects really accurate? Not quite. The scientific consensus that's emerging is that while abstinence isn't harmful, it does mean you're missing out on a whole list of documented health and psychological benefits. So it kind of leaves us with a final, bigger question. All this data on longevity, on stress, on mood, it all seems to be pointing to the power of intimacy and touch. So maybe the real conversation isn't just about the physical act of sex. Maybe what the science is really capturing are the profound, incredible health benefits of human connection itself. Thank you for being with us until the end of this video. Please be sure to subscribe to the What Does Science Say channel and give us energy with your likes and comments. Share your comments with us and send the video to your loved ones so that others can also use it.